Oops. I hit it.
That's why. They moved it over though because people talk and people
Podcast live to give you guys a little glimpse of what we do every Sunday, posted on Monday. And so here we are for your amusement and your information. Each week we get together. Let's see. We talk about new this week books. Generally speaking, we spoil the heck out of everything. But we're not going to do that tonight because we know the new books just came out yesterday. Yeah. Usually we let you guys pick up your books Wednesday, read them through the weekend, and listen to the podcast on Monday. And like I say, we talk about each and everything, go through the comics of the week, go through things that are going on in the world of comics, things we've got going on locally and all around, and all those good things. Yeah. So welcome. And we'll go ahead and get started. This was a really big week of fun stuff. There's July is always a big time of comics. We're going to talk some new this week books. We're going to talk the Overstreet Price Guide comes out next week. San Diego Comic-Con is next week. So like I say, July is huge. This week was particularly huge because we got Superman #1 and we got Amazing Spider-Man #1. There really aren't two bigger characters in comics, excluding maybe Batman. So getting first issues of new ongoing titles from those guys is pretty huge. We've got number 50s rolling out. Flash War, Flash number 50 is huge. Wonder Woman 50. It's worth noting that Rebirth is already 50 issues in. New 52 only went 52 issues, so we're already eclipsing that, and that's pretty huge.
And don't forget, we got Hawkman 2.
That cover's gorgeous, by the way.
And the artwork inside is incredible.
It's fun to show you guys covers. We usually just talking about stuff, and we don't have visuals, so it's kind of fun. You might not think so because you have to look at our faces. You don't usually have to look at our faces, but with the visuals of the comics.
Once a year they can put up with
it. Awesome Marvel books out this week, like Darth Vader. I should say other in addition to Spider-Man. Vader in the last issue of Thrawn. In the video, I'm always talking about the great stuff that Marvel does. Got some Dynamites from Amy Chu. Big week from Image. Wanted to talk about Archie. This is the last issue of Mark Waid's Archie. Everybody at every comic shop got a Comic Book Legal Defense Fund handout. I think it's always worth mentioning the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and the great work that those nice folks do, who we'll be seeing this weekend at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, it's surprising that they actually need the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, but it is that they do. They need it.
Sad but true. Yeah. When we first started going to San Diego, we started going to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund panels, and I was shocked at the kind of things that they do and is still required in this day and age. So get into a little of that. So I was wanting, of course, sorry, Marcus, that you're not here because you're my Superman guy and you were supposed to cover this, even though I'm a Superman guy. I do want to mention really quick this awesome David Mack cover. But let's jump really quick to Amazing Spider-Man #1 with this awesome wraparound because I got thrown an easy pitch this week because you're the Spider-Man guy, so I could be like, Chris, Spider-Man #1.
Yeah.
Go.
And then an hour later, we'll be done.
And then I do the wrap-up at the end, and that would be that. So, I'll show them the awesome wrap-around.
Well, without getting away too many spoilers, and we were discussing this before the podcast, basically, in one issue, Nick Spencer basically undid the last, 10 years of Spider-Man. He put him back to pre-wedding in a sense of the way he is in his life. And I mean, it doesn't have two nickels to rub against each other. No job, no this, no that. Everybody hates him. Both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, everybody hates him. So, I mean, he's right back there in the Romita era, So it was amazing. And I was reading this and I kept going page to page, like, wow, they're doing this. Okay. Whoa, they're going to do this now. They're really going to do that. And it kept, all the dominoes kept falling in. I'm like, oh my God. And about not even a quarter way of the book, I realized exactly what he was doing. He says, you know what? I'm going to put him back when he was fun, and that's where we are right now. And for longtime fans, again, I won't spoil it. The last bit, what you get, you find out there's one person in this corner, and you're like, you want to cheer. You're like, yes, that person, you know.
Spoiler: it's not J. Jonah Jameson.
No, it's not.
Well, in a lot of ways, you answered my next question, which is, and rolled into my next comment. The number one thing. So we've seen lots of relaunches lately. This isn't even the only Amazing Spider-Man #1 I have on my shelf, most likely. But what we've seen from the recent ones, Captain America #1, Avengers #1, Thor, Tony Stark, Iron Man, has been a little what you're describing, a mix of a new direction by kind of starting over again.
Right.
Iron Man is Tony Stark back in the suit. Thor is Thor again. The Avengers is the standard lineup that you recognize. And now Amazing Spider-Man is, back to being the tough luck Peter Parker,
Right.
with some classic villains and all like that sort of thing. What do you think? What's the future of Marvel from here? Is it retro, or are they taking this into into a new direction?
It looks like everything is kind of going back to what the classic stuff, and I for one am really happy that they're doing this legacy number. It's sort of a best of both worlds, like you put the #1 on there, and all the new people are like, oh look, a #1, I can jump on, great point to jump on. But the old fans are like, it says 802 right below that, and that's where it's going in my collection. So I'm happy for that direction. I know as fans, we always say we want something new, but we don't want anything new. And I'm sure we drive creators crazy because we're all saying, yeah, why don't you give us something new? So, I like old. What's old? What's the saying? What's old is new. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to express what they're doing.
Mhm.
What's old is new again, and it is fun. There's a reason why it worked and why it continues to work. And all you got to do is spruce up the villains like they do. I've got the book all down here. Like,
Yeah. Let me get that handheld camera over there.
Again, the day after release, we don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but it was a good book. It was fun. It's exciting. And again, all the new #1s kind of deserve new #1s. I guess in the recent with the Marvel Now, and the Marvel Now again, my feelings were particularly, for example, with Daredevil. They relaunched Daredevil with the same creative team, with the same everything. I'm like, well, then what's the purpose of a new #1 other than to just have a #1 on it?
Right.
That was kind of my complaint with those relaunches. But in this sense, all the books kind of seem to be taking a whole new spin, a whole new direction, and getting back to their roots. And it's fun.
Yeah.
I've liked all of it so far. Captain America, Cap was fun. Doctor Strange.
I was just about to mention
fun.
Captain Strange, Doctor Strange, yeah, because that is completely different direction than he's ever been. I don't remember Strange ever being in space.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the most interesting Marvel to DC segue right here, because, as you said, the end of this Spider-Man that we won't spoil, and the end of that Doctor Strange #1 was really awesome. The last page of this Superman, and again, I'm going to show that David Mack cover because it's awesome. The last page of this Superman book has one of those whoa, no way kind of shots. And I like to say in the store, and I like to say in the video, and I know this is controversial or whatever you want to say. And I don't mean to rub anybody the wrong way, but periodicals are fun. The reason you read the floppies is so you get to that last page, you go, oh, not that thing. And then it leads you there, and you have to stew on it and chew on it and talk to your friends about it and talk on the podcast about it. And wonder what's going to happen to your favorite character. And then you wait 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, and then you get that next issue, and oh yeah, there it is. I finally get to see
3 years, depending on who the writer is.
And when you only read by graphic novel, you don't get that. I understand it's fun to read the entire thing in one sitting, and that's great. But you lose some of the suspense, some of the excitement, some of the thrill of those last pages. And honestly, it's a big reason what makes first issue so much fun.
Yeah.
Because the first issue has to hook you. It's the first issue's job to make you need to read the next 100 issues.
Yeah.
So they have to have one of those kind of big hit you in the gut moments. And a lot of certainly the Marvel ones that had that. The Superman one had that.
Oh, definitely.
The Superman book had a lot of things. I don't want to say too much because I know from my sub boxes there's still a lot of Man of Steel 6s that need to be read. But everybody knows that Brian Michael Bendis has taken over Superman. Everybody knows it's the whole Superverse. You should really, really read Man of Steel #6, even if you're not a Superman fan. There's a lot going on in that book. All the art is gorgeous. If you listen to the podcast, you know we've been talking about it. But you can also just grab this and roll. You might wonder what has happened at a couple of points, but we still, even those of us who read, are wondering what's going to happen. So, again, beautiful art. Really, really big moments. Kind of like we're saying, Superman's been around a long time, so they have to sort of have a very good reason why he needs a new first issue. And this gives it to us. A lot has changed in his world, and he's trying to get it back. And so I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to whatever else they're going to do with this in action and the whole Superverse.
You mentioned the big moments. It was even the quiet moments that really kept me interested in the book. I mean, that whole bit where he's talking to John at the breakfast table, and it sounds like a father talking to son. No, you've got to go to school. Oh, come on, Dad! I don't need to go to school. I can do this and I can do that. No, you're going to school. You could hear that, and it was fun. It shows you the aspect of Superman. He's not just go punch the big robot in the face. He's a man. He's a father. He's a husband. And
he's a three-dimensional character. Yeah,
exactly. But what's going on with it right now? It's going to be interesting to see how he handles how his personal life has changed. Again, I don't want to go into any spoilers right now.
Though there are definitely a couple of moments where the Incredible Hulk music plays. But again, even if you're not a Superman fan, it's a really great opportunity to give the book a try. Like any book that has art by no one knows how to say his name, Yvonne Rice. I call him Ivan Rice just because that's how it looks and that's how I've always read comic names. From what I understand, nobody knows how to say it. But anyway, Bendis is of course very popular, very famous. Rice's his art is gorgeous. This is almost Neil Adams like. So totally worth picking up.
And I still stand by my statement earlier that we're getting like Bendis light right now. I think he's holding in the reins so he doesn't give us the 6 pages of talking heads. He
doesn't want to make anybody mad too soon. But it's like you said, certainly going to be getting controversial. Let's jump from first issues to 50th issues. Because I know you're a Flash guy. I know you want to talk a little bit about this Flash War stuff. But like I said a minute ago, I'm just kind of fascinated that they're already 50 issues in with all of this stuff. Even as the retailer, I'm the guy that orders this stuff. And as volume 6 of the trades come in, and this number 49, number 50, I'm like, wow, they've been at this Rebirth thing for a little while. And I don't know that anybody appreciates or has really realized that we're, again, 50 issues in with most of the line. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. This was another great story. And what I like...
So I'm going to show them that virgin cover again.
Oh, isn't that sweet? In this one, it's one of those. They're fighting the Zoom Flash. So you've got 3 guys dressed as a regular Flash fighting, and what I guess you could say it takes place over a few seconds. But the whole book is that way because they're running and fighting and going through the Speed Force. They visit Hyper Time. I mean, there's a little bit of everything for everybody. So,
what more does a Flash want than 3 Flashes fighting in the same book?
Yeah. And the fight ends, but the story continues. Let's just say. So, I know it's so hard not to be spoilers. You just want to go and tell everybody about this
and that. Well, they're all probably following along as we are. That's a fairly Crisis-esque shot right there. That's great.
Yeah, and look at the artwork again. Out of the Hard.
Oh, Porter. Heck yeah.
Mhm.
He goes way back with the Flash, Howard Porter.
Mhm.
He's probably been on this book for a long time.
Yeah. But
Great stuff.
great stuff.
Few characters as visually exciting as the Flash.
Yeah.
And I think the cover, like you said, page it carries through. And Wonder Woman number 50, very very similar kind of thing. This book has been really solid for 50 issues with great art, gorgeous art, big stories, new villains, and again, I just think it's really neat that across the board, all this DC Rebirth stuff has been really solid through 50 issues. Batman 50 was last week.
Yeah.
They've already relaunched Justice League, but that would have been getting close. And like I say, it's all kind of going gangbusters. The Green Lantern stuff, pretty much anything DC you want to look at. And who doesn't love these big double-sized, bonus-sized issues?
Yeah.
That's always fun too.
Yeah. A little hard on the wallet, but
That is true. With a $3.99 standard cover price, double-sized $5.99, $7.99 sometimes gets a little steep.
what do you?
I'm getting a couple of questions. Where are you guys located at? We are in Rockin, Milpitas, California. We are just a little bit north of San Jose. I always have to think a minute. That's how bad I am with direction. Where are we compared to the biggest city in the area? Oh yeah, north. So yes, we're just a little north of San Jose, California. We like to call it Rockin' Milpitas because it's super fun here. We have one of the best comic stores in the country. We have more than one mini golf course. We have a Dave and Buster's. I mean, what more do you need?
Yeah.
We got a mall so great they call it that. So we're really proud of our little town.
And pretty soon we're actually going to have a BART extension.
Yes, we're after 30 years we're going to get our own BART train. So yes, if you come out to Silicon Valley Comic Con, or if you come out to the quarterly toy show in the area, then we are your closest comic book store, and it's lots of fun here.
Yes, it is.
And my man CJ is saying, "What's up, guys? Wish I was there with you. We wish you were here too, CJ.
Yes.
What's going on, man?" And love the cover, B cover for Flash. Yes, why don't you hold that back up? We've been talking about this a little on the podcast. We've been talking a lot about it in the store. DC has been doing what the industry calls virgin covers for their B cover, alternate cover of all their books this month, and they've been fantastic. Show them that Hawkman one you had.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've not picked up one of them.
The Hawkman one I showed you. The David Mack one was the one for Superman. They call them virgin covers because they don't have any letters on them or anything. It's just the art. You sort of got to know what it is. I guess, on the bottom they tell you. But anyway, they don't overdo them with, say like this Flash one says, "Hey, the Flash really big," and it gives you the story, and it gives you the price, and it gives you the everything. The B covers are just for the art.
There's no logo. They're just the DC logo in the corner.
Across the board, they've been gorgeous. And like I said, we've been talking about it a lot in the store. I have a lot of subs who put, A cover only on their sub list because you want the standard one and you want, the common one that you're going to see and whatever.
Yeah, even the Superman one was great.
Sure, yeah.
Nothing
to complain about.
Yeah.
And like I say, most folks like to get the A covers, but across the board. Well, I'll back up a little bit because sometimes the theme can be a theme you might not necessarily want. Let's say they're doing, I don't know, whatever it was. This month we're doing Everybody by Fred Hembeck. And I love Fred Hembeck, but Fred Hembeck isn't for everybody. So on the Fred Hembeck B cover month, you might want just the A covers. But this month everybody's switched it up because, again, across the line, DC has just been knocking it out of the park. Stories, content now with the alternate covers. And let me say in parentheses, because again, I like our show to be somewhat informational, and I also like our show to be introductory. I like everything I do, everything we do here at Black Cat to be accessible to the new fan, accessible to anybody. That's why I over-explain sometimes. I apologize to you long-timers. I know you know what I'm talking about, but like I say, I like to be accessible. And when you explain things like how virgin covers work. Another thing is the term variant. Here in our store, and I know it's a word that they throw around for anything. and so it gives me an opportunity to point out the vernacular I like to use and I like us to use here in our little corner of the world. Again, I'm not telling you how to do it or how it should be done, but this, excuse me, Chris,
No problem.
is an alternate, not a variant. A variant is something, and I don't have one handy, but a variant is something that is incentivized. An alternate cover is something that I, the retailer, can order as many as I want. Thank you very much. So, to mix match some examples. Here's the A cover for Superman. It's the A cover, the standard cover, whatever you want to say. And then DC will have some sort of theme, the B cover, the alternate cover, the whatever. I don't consider this a variant because I reserve variant for something like this. Here at Black Hat, we put these little tags on them that tell you we had to order X number of Black Panther number 2s to receive this special one. So this one is the variant because you can't just order it. It just comes to you from the magical elves at Marvel. So anyway, I don't want to beat that into the ground, but the word variant gets thrown around a lot. And I get asked about, and I think there's mass confusion and mass misuse of the word, especially from people who may not know a lot about comics. Given the opportunity with the Virgin covers, it was a great chance to explain that kind of thing.
Well, usually with variants, I always say like 1 in 1,000, 1 in 500,
Right.
and that usually tells me what the retailer has to order to get.
Exactly.
So, like, it's a 1 in 500 variant. You have to order 500 to get that one copy of it.
Well, and so people, and that's exactly my point. People call and ask me if I have that special thing. I'm like, well, no, you had to order 1,000 copies to get the special thing, and I wasn't going to do that.
I guess if they want to buy 500 to get the one, you'd order for them.
Well, sure. If you want to pre-order that, you can do that just fine. Looks like we've got some other questions coming in. 90s, 2000s DC fan. Left behind by the new 52. I've been out of the loop. Is DC bringing back the old JSA, old DC lore? That's a very interesting question. I always like to answer things with I don't know, only because there's never a yes or no in comics. There's always a eventually. Is this guy coming back? Eventually. Do you think they're going to kill off that person? Eventually. Everything goes and everything comes back. To be more specific, Forrest, I'll say two things. A lot of people feel like you do. A lot of people get turned off from comics for whatever reason. Comics is a big thing, and people put a lot of interest in it, and they get turned off for whatever reason. And New 52 did that for a lot of people. I always say it started really, really strong and didn't necessarily follow through like Rebirth is. 5 trades in, 6 trades in, you weren't still really feeling it. As I say in all things with comics, jump back in, especially as we're talking about these number ones. Rebirth is really solid. Go back to your favorite character, pick up the newest issue of whatever it is you used to like to read, and give it a chance. I don't want to oversell anything, but just to say that if you were turned off by New 52, there's probably something in Rebirth that's interesting and fun. As far as addressing the JSA specifically, there was a Scooby-Doo team-up a couple issues ago that had the JSA in it. Mr. Terrific is part of the Terrifics, along with Plastic Man and Metamorpho. That's a lot of fun.
Bringing back Sandman.
That's true. They're bringing back the Neil Gaiman Sandman universe. So if you're a 90s DC fan, that's huge news. So like I say, I appreciate that you get turned off. To get away from the DC example, as my friend Daniel's here, the X-Men, that happens with X-Men fans from time to time. They're following along and they're deep into the story, and then this guy gets launched into space, and they're like, "What? You have to launch that guy into space?" For my particular thing, then they all fake their death and move to Australia, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And then like the next issue, they're all living in Australia, and I was like, "No, I've had enough of this." But a couple of years go by, and I'm in a 7-Eleven, and here's number 275 with art by this guy named Jim Lee. This looks really cool. I like double-sized issues. Bam, I'm an X-Men fan again. And so, like I say, comics can push you out. But it's, if you love comics, then, or you love a character or something, then you ought to jump back in at the next part one, or when a new artist comes in, or something have you. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, I will add this. I mean, I was a big JSA fan. I love that one. Jeff Johns is doing all that. And I'm sad that it's gone too. But I don't count it out because, like you said, who knows what's going to come back. Where Marcus and I have been discussing ourselves here, are they going to bring back, the Legion? Mm-hmm. That's another one of my favorite groups. And he keeps saying, yeah, all signs point towards this because we've seen characters pop up. You never know. So fingers crossed. I'm with you on that one. Bring back the JSA.
That's true. As I said, in comics, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Keep writing that fan mail. They'll bring your character back. They'll do anything with enough letters and enough response.
Yeah.
I also think it's 200% true that they purposely shelve characters and things and let it stew and let the excitement build. They make you miss a character. I think JSA is that. I think Legion is that.
Yeah.
They've been doing it to me with Fantastic Four for quite some time. They've done it with Thor. I remember a long time ago when they canceled the initial run of Thor, nobody noticed.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months later, they were like, "Hey, what happened to Thor?" And I was like, "Well, I was the only one reading it, so they canceled it." But once they noticed it was gone, they really wanted it back, and that's when the publisher says, "Ha, yes, time for a Thor relaunch."
Yeah,
and so I'm sure that day is coming for the JSA.
And not to go on a little tangent here, but that's what we do here. Tangents.
That's why we're here.
I can't remember the creator. He was the one that did the Baja Legion series.
Oh.
He did an interview right after the death of Blue Beetle, and he was talking about how fan outrage. He says, "Look, if it ever got to the point where people really wanted his character back, I can run it back in an instant." And he says, "All I gotta do is I'm walking through and say, 'Hey guys, what's going on?'
I'm back."
Yeah, I'm back.
What Colossus did.
Yeah, and so don't ever count out anything or anybody in comics.
Hal Jordan was a molecule on somebody's cape on Green Arrow. A molecule of Hal Jordan was brought back because they found his scrap of him on Green Arrow somehow. So yes, all that totally happens. I've been asked to go over the details of your sale this weekend, and I'll be more than happy. I wanted to go through all that really fast at the beginning, actually. So this is the Black Hat Comics Rockin' Milpitas pre-Comic-Con Comic-Con. Tonight is Thursday, the podcast day. Everything, all of our toys and apparel were on sale today for 20% off. Tomorrow is our gaming and our San Diego Comic-Con panel. And what's the sale? I can't read it in our newsletter thing. Oh, all the gaming merchandise, of course, because it's gaming day. There it is. All the gaming merchandise is 20% off. Then Saturday is movie night. And I'll go into the details in a bit about the events, but since you asked about the sales specifically. So anything that they made a movie of is 20% off, which gets to be a bigger category every single year. So if they've made a movie out of it, and not one of those TV movies, sorry, Netflix doesn't count. It only counts if you charged me way too much for my candy and stuck me somewhere where somebody's texting all for 2 hours.
You know you're gonna get somebody come in and say, "Look, this old black and white cereal."
I get that every time. People want their Shazam, for example, or whatever it is.
Blue Beetle, remember, he was a Saturday morning cereal. So someone's gonna tell me, "Yeah, they made a movie about him."
Like I say, Netflix doesn't count. Don't come at me with your Iron Fist. Sorry, Iron Fist. Sorry. And Sunday's the swap meet. Yes. And the swap meet, we do our back issue bin 75% off, which is insane. Come in on Sunday and pillage that back issue bin at 75% off. I will say really quick about the events because movie night is super awesome. You got to come out movie night. We've upgraded the tech. We really make it fun. We got popcorn. It's awesome. And the swap meet is super awesome. You got to come out and set up and try and sell some stuff if you got too much stuff like he and I do, or you can come and get even more stuff like he and I do.
Do I walk away with more than I came with?
We all leave with more than we came with, but it's a ton of fun to buy, sell, trade, get your Black Hat bucks, all that good thing. We'll talk a little bit more of that as it goes on.
And I will say with movie night, the weather is so cooperating right now. It's warm in the evening, no breeze. I think this is going to be the best one yet.
And we aren't going to tell you what the movie is.
They
We do
never
that on
tell
purpose. But it's always something like recent, something new, and we show some cool animated shorts and stuff. So
and it's all family friendly.
Yes, totally. All ages, family friendly, fun and free. So just come on out, kick back, have a good time. Sunday night, that's fun.
See a great movie under
For
the
Saturday
stars and free popcorn. I mean, and you don't have to spend a dime.
What's not to love?
Exactly. Bring out the family.
And Swap Meet will be a little of the reverse. So Swap Meet will be out in the heat.
Roasted.
It's going to be like maybe 900 degrees on Sunday, but the Swap Meet is also lots of fun. So that's why we do the whole pre-Comic-Con, Comic-Con. And all these things get bigger and better every year, so that's fun too. So getting back to the show, I'll mention just a few things, a couple topics to blow through. Because again, what we like to do here, a couple things I also like to mention about our show if you're not familiar with the podcast. We are sponsored by us, Black Hat Comics. We don't get money from publishers. We don't get money from creators. We don't get told what to say or what to talk about. We don't push anybody's stuff. We have no particular agenda. The point of this show is for you guys to be a fly on the wall. If you're ever in a comic book store, there's three guys at the counter talking about whatever. And yes, sorry, and ladies. There's guys and gals at the counter talking about whatever. And this is your opportunity to tune in and listen to us talk about whatever. I would say I purposely angled it. It's you, Marcus, and I. I've aged the show on purpose so that we can give a little bit of dimension of, I've been going to Comic-Con for 20 years. That without bragging about anything, I'm an old man, and so I have a lot to say about a lot of things. You can ask me freaking anything about comics, and I can say, this was going on, Jim Shooter. We can talk about the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, whatever. And again, we try and keep it current, we keep it modern, but I bring in the old guys so we can give it perspective and we can give it things like that.
But we've also been reading nonstop. I mean, I didn't take a break. I know Marcus didn't take a break.
No, Marcus didn't. You don't get hundreds of long boxes by taking hiatuses.
So we can talk about the new stuff, and we can talk about how the old stuff, or vice versa. How they compare, how they are similar. You're going to get that conversation
for sure.
And I will say this: what I really love about this shop, besides it's very friendly to everybody, but people can talk, and there are people who barely know anything. They're just new to the thing, and they're not being treated like some get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about. No, everybody just is really here jazzed about comics, and they want to talk about comics.
I really believe, as I said earlier in the show, we all you viewers, comic readers, every fan, and I believe this always, every fan is obligated to bring in new fans. Every fan is an ambassador to comics. It is because we are a very small industry, we're a very small art form, and we have a world to conquer. And so I've always made a personal emphasis to make things as introductory as possible. It's not fun if I tell you what you're supposed to like, or if I tell you you're stupid, get out. That's really not going to get you buying more comics.
No, it's not The Simpsons and not the comic book guy.
I really tried to fight those stereotypes for 1,000 reasons. Like I say, first and foremost, it's my life mission to get more people to read books like this, to get a Star Wars comic book in their hand. I love that the movies are so popular and all this, because it's done half my work for me, which is at least introducing the names and the characters to these people. But like I say, it's important that everything we do, I push the fans, my customers, whoever, on Free Comic Book Day and on Halloween and any opportunity they can to bring in new readers, to turn people onto comics, because I don't know, for all the good reasons, to do for others, to bring to others the enjoyment that comics brings to us. Yeah. So we try and do that in the store. We try and do that on the podcast. We try and do it on Free Comic Book Day, whatever have you.
Well, we've said it many times. It's like, we love comics. We want to talk about them. We're very positive about comics, no matter what. We don't want to talk about the bad stuff. We just want to talk about the good stuff, and we'll talk to anybody who listens.
That's true. That is. We're talking anyway, so you might as well listen in and have a little fun with us. And so, like I say, we go through the things. Again, like the 50 issues of Rebirth, I never miss an opportunity to point out what a great job Marvel does with all their Star Wars stuff, particularly Vader. The core title is really good, but Darth Vader is just eye-bleedingly good. And I mean, that's Grandma Tarkin on the cover there. This is the second run of Vader. There are four. I'm sorry. There's Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dr. Aphra, and Poe Dameron. And then they always have a floating mini-series. The current one is Thrawn, and that wraps up this week. Like I say, if you're any kind of Star Wars fan, certainly, if you're a science fiction fan, or if you just like comics with great stories and great art, I'd really recommend grabbing a volume of one of any of that Star Wars stuff. A couple other things that I'd mentioned at the top that I wanted to get a little into. Amy Chu has to be one of the busiest people in comics. This is Deja Thoris number 6, and this is Red Sonja number 18. I talk in the weekly video all the time about what a great job Dynamite does with their licensed stuff. And I should have a copy of Green Hornet because she writes that too. But as I'd mentioned again in the video, and I wanted to mention on the show this week, she gets all kinds of books out. They're always really quality. They come out on time. You don't hear about some 6-month hiatus that Amy Chu needs to go on to write her one book. Well, there's lots of them. I'm not picking on anybody in particular. I'm sorry, I can name at least 5 names.
I know.
And of how come? I get asked all the time, where's this book? I don't know. Can you look up when the next issue comes?
Yeah.
No, because it will have a question mark, or it will have some 2025 date.
How long did we wait for Captain America White?
And so it's again refreshing when somebody gets the work out and it's quality. I always say, and this isn't about Amy Chu this part, but with licensed product books like Dark Horse does, Alien and things, when they're really good. If you don't like barbarian books, Red Sonja isn't going to change your mind. If you aren't a science fiction fan, Deja Thoris isn't going to change your mind. But if you are a science fiction fan, if you're like me and you love anything Warlord of Mars, it's going to fit right in with everything that you love about that and why you love it. If you are a Conan Red Sonja fan, again, we've been around a while. I was a huge fan of the old school Red Sonja back in the day, and so what turned me on to Dynamite in the first place was, wow, this isn't 90s cheesecake stuff. This is her swinging that sword and taking dudes out. And so again, it's not gonna change your mind on the genre, but if you like that character, if you like that genre, you definitely got to check out what Dynamite does with a lot of stuff. And again, kudos to Amy Chu. We met her in Seattle, and she was super cool, very, very gracious, which again, unfortunately, is a little rare in this business, and so it was again refreshing to meet someone that was fun and excited about her work and really good at it. So again, with 2 of her books out this week, I thought it well worth noting that try and get more people into Dynamite and checking out their stuff. And the last thing, and I bring this up only because frankly it was brought to my attention like this morning. This is Archie number 32. Again, if you watch my video every week, I bore you to death with preaching about Archie. They're one of the best publishers in the business. They've upgraded. I don't want to say upgraded. They've always done, traditionally speaking, all ages books. And now they've moved into what I refer to as like the PG-13 realm of comics. Most mainstream comics, when they say T or T+, it's kind of a PG-13. So they relaunched Archie. They got Mark Waid, one of my all-time favorite guys. You've read Kingdom Come. You know what I'm talking about. You've read The Flash. You've read a million things by Mark Waid, irredeemable. Anyway, he's done a brilliant job with this book, but unfortunately, this is his last issue. It's number 32. Number 33 will be number 699, and then number 700 will be written by the Spencer guy who's doing Spider-Man. So Archie's into the legacy numbering thing now, and we're going to get Archie 700 going forward, and it will now be the longest running. Well, now that Action is that book again, but one of the longest running comics there is. So that's super cool. I recommend all you folks to check out the trade paperbacks for this series. Check out Afterlife with Archie. check out Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, coming to a Netflix television near you. And anything, Betty and Veronica Vixens, Jughead the Hunger. I could go on and on. Archie is one of my favorite publishers right now, no doubt about it. Good stuff.
Well, I got one more I want to talk about real fast. This is X-Men Blue. So we are. This is my X-Men team. I mentioned it many times in the podcast. This is the original X-Men, brought through time. Blah blah blah. I'm not going to get no spoilers. A lot of fun, and similar to Spider-Man, they kind of hit the reset switch on some things. So people that were saying this guy can't be this way, he's this way. Well, guess what? He's back that way. So a lot of fun. And this is what we were mentioning earlier about how the X-Men fan, they were died and they suddenly, well, what's going on with my X-Men? You're jumping for original X-Men. This is a good book. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
It's been fun from the very beginning. I really like it was Bendis, right? That started all new X-Men. Yeah. And after Avengers versus X-Men, it was Beast's idea to go back, bring the original team forward, have old Scott meet new Scott. Maybe new Scott would come to his senses. And then I was just really intrigued by that. And I've said I'm not necessarily the hugest Bendis fan, so I didn't necessarily read the book just for that, but I wanted to see where he was going with it. And he did a great job. And then they turned it into X-Men Blue, and that kept on going without missing a beat. Yeah. So I'm curious how they're going to wrap it all up.
Yeah, and they've got Gold also going at the same time. And we mentioned when it first came out, you got your choice now. If you love the Claremont Burns X-Men, that's Gold for you. If you like the original one, that's Blue. And glutton for punishment like me, get both.
Well, then if you're a real addict, then you've got Astonishing and X-Men Red. I think Astonishing is actually the best of the bunch. And there's so much going on in that I can't even talk about. But if you don't know, Astonishing X-Men is a really good book. If you're following Blue and Gold, you should pick up the volume 1 to Astonishing. I've been waiting for all these books to collide. I haven't been following the whole line religiously enough to use my psychic powers to see where it's going, but all of these books have to be going somewhere. Again, events of Astonishing tell you that this has to explode into the bigger Marvel universe at some point. And when it does, you'll all know that I said that here first. But it is, again, another thing I say on the video all the time. It's a good time to be an X fan. Like the other Marvel #1s, they're doing a really good job of giving what's familiar to you, but with new stories and new angles on characters.
I think that's the key to keeping. We grew up with them, but we don't want to see the same old. Oh, he's punching Thanos again,
If Storm has to open a window one more time.
Yeah. Yeah, or what was... Oh, yes, we know Wolverine's the best that he's...
Best there is at what he does. But, yeah, I don't want to get into X-Men Gold 30 again. That was last week's topic. But, yes, like I say, it's a good time to be an X-Men fan. I like when it's dramatic like that. X-Men should be more of a soap opera than most books, and they've been earning that lately. And again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I guess one of the last things for this week was the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. This is just a little free read that you can pick up. The Comic Book Legal Defense Fund is so important. There are a lot of organizations that help out comic book industry professionals that need financial legal assistance. Comic Book Legal Defense Fund mostly supports creators in comic book stores. Comic shops get arrested and sued for all kinds of ridiculous things, and these guys put up a lot of time, effort, money, legal work to support those shops, and that's really important. And they fight censorship. They do all kinds of good work too. So if you have a few dollars that you're not spending on comics, you might consider floating them to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. And they send you cool little Planet of the Apes homage things by Mike Allred. Yeah,
they every time I see them at the convention, I just drop a couple bucks in there. I feel it's my duty. I mean, I'm not going to put either I can buy maybe buy an C-15 or donate to them. No, I'm not going to do that. But $1 here, $1 there helps.
I'm trying to think, and I'm upset at myself for not remembering the name of some of the groups that support the aging creators. There are a lot. Is it American Hero? Well, anyway, that's what Google's for. But there are a lot of great organizations that, again, support creators, support the industry, and you guys should, like we do, drop a dime in that bucket. Or, well, more specifically, if you go to the shows, especially the CBLDF, they get signed editions of really cool books, and you can buy at cover price trade paperbacks. Or what? They're not super expensive. I bought some. The Walt Simonson thing was. Francie's looking at me like, "No, you're crazy." Okay, so for a considerable donation, you can get your favorite book signed by that creator. Again, I got a Thor book signed by Walt Simonson. I've got one of the things that was super cool. I got a Daredevil comic signed by Frank Miller from Daredevil's collection. From Frank Miller's collection. It was one of his store copies.
The blind guy's reading comics, great.
It was stamped like, Marvel file copy, whatever, and it's signed by Frank Miller, and that's extremely cool.
Yeah, that's a little secret that most people have not caught on yet. That they always have great guests at their booth, and they're volunteering, and a lot of times they're not advertised in the program. So you can, if you're there, I want to see Jim Lee, and Jim Lee's line is like around the block. And then somebody you cruise by and you find out, he's going to be here in 2 hours, and you could pretty much talk to him all day long,
Yep. Which is my segue to next week's San Diego Comic-Con. One of the coolest things about this industry is that you can meet these people. You can spend 2 minutes with the creator of your favorite book, of that book that you read and loved. Yes, I know, like, you back in the day could wait 20 hours and meet J.K. Rowling. But at comic conventions, you can meet all kinds of people, publishers, writers, artists, and it's a whole lot of fun. San Diego is the biggest show in the world, biggest show in the country, certainly. And there's 1,000 reasons a person goes to San Diego Comic-Con. But that has always been one of the big reasons I go, is just to see people and say, hey, thanks for doing that book, and that was awesome, and do more stuff like that, and whatever else. And on the, I hate to be morose about it, but a lot of these guys are like me, getting into their later years, and so you got to kind of catch them while you can. We lost Steve Ditko this week. I know he's an exception for a number of reasons. One, he never did conventions, and two, he was like 90. But like I say, it's important to get out and see these folks before they can't make it out to the shows anymore, and it feels good to do that, and it's great to see those guys, and you get awesome experiences. One of the craziest, funnest times I ever had was just standing in front of Jim Steranko for 15 minutes while he was Jim Steranko. You don't have to ask any questions or anything. You just have to bask in the eccentricity that is Jim Steranko. God bless you. And there's a lot of folks like that, and it's really fun to meet these guys. And again, that's a big reason why we go to San Diego.
And I also look at the other way for point of view. These guys, pretty much, they're locked up in their basements. They're in the writing rooms, and they write their stories. They draw. They don't get out. They don't. And so when they get to these conventions, they interact with the fans, and they see the effect of their artwork or their stories are, and they're like impressed. There's like, it's like, wait a minute, I just wrote this story and you're going gaga over it, And so I think for them, it's, going up to them and telling them how much it meant to them. They may have heard it a million times that day, but they have not heard it every day.
Yeah.
So.
And let's face it, that doesn't stink. Like, people, as you sit there, it's not terrible when people come up and tell you how much they love that thing you did. It's and like I say, it's fun for us too. It's fun to have that communication. And one thing I like about, I mentioned Mark Waid earlier, he does the opposite to you. When you're in line, when you get to the front, you ask him for the autograph, he starts grilling you. Well, what exactly did you like about it? What would you like to see more of in the next issue? Would you like to see more characters like this? Would you like to see them in outer space? And not like in a bad way, in an awesome way. Suddenly you're like giving feedback to Mark Waid. Like, am I going to be in the next issue? And so that's a lot of fun. And I do a lot of that. Again, I do a lot of that with creators. I do a lot of that with publishers. We'll go to the publisher booths and I'll give them the feedback of my customers and the readers. And hey, this was really cool and people really like this. Hey, this was awful. Don't ever do that again. People thought that was stupid. Hey, you really didn't need to put 36 covers on that book. 26 would have been more than enough. And again, there really isn't any industry. When I buy a record and I don't like the record, I can't go to the music convention and go up to my band and say, you guys really needed more cowbell. They don't care what I think.
Yeah.
Or if they do, they certainly don't have conventions where I can express that. If I love a movie, there are things with, the Hollywood conventions are becoming more and more of a thing. But even at that, you got to pay $100 for that.
Yeah.
At San Diego, I don't necessarily have to pay
Maybe they're
$100 to see people. Well, yeah, that too. But I'm too old for all that. And again, there's 1,000 reasons. The popularity of San Diego Comic-Con has made all other conventions busier and more popular. So whoever you are watching this, you probably couldn't get a ticket to San Diego, but I would strongly encourage you to get out to WonderCon in Anaheim, number one, because it's probably the show most like San Diego, so at least you'll have an idea of what the heck all this stuff is about. But wherever you are, get out to your local show, small show or big show. Comic conventions are a lot of fun. We go first and foremost to buy old comics for us, to buy old comics for that back wall you see back there with old comics. Yes, and that's again number one, and number two is, like we say, to meet creators, to talk to cool people. But San Diego particularly has all the panels and all the display and everything. You all know about Hall H, and you all know about the trailers and all that kind of thing, all the stuff that you see on the internet. And that isn't necessarily at every show, but the core of what makes it fun is at every show. We love going to the toy show. If you listen to the podcast, we talk about our little quarterly toy show all the time, because again, it's just fun to go out, pick up comics, meet those celebrities like the Bionic Woman,
Bud Bundy,
whatever it might be, and don't worry about a ticket. Just go down and volunteer. You work for like 4 hours, and then you get to be in the show. It's not that easy anymore. I used to tell people, when you get into the show, just buy your ticket for next year. You can't do that anymore. But one thing I still say, and it isn't as true as it used to be, just go to San Diego anyway. You probably can't get a hotel room, but get a hotel room like in Orange County or in Tijuana, and just hang out in San Diego for a day or two. All the cosplayers are walking around town. There's 1,000,001 little pop-up comic book things that go on, Walking Dead stuff at the baseball stadium. A lot of things you don't have to pay for. You can just come into San Diego, hang out in the gas lamp, and be part of. You will never see a whole city full of comic book people in your life. San Diego Comic-Con, I talk about conventions, all those things, all that's great. But San Diego during the week of Comic-Con is a city full of comic book people. It's our people. And so again, if you can't get a ticket to the show, but if you can weasel your way into town for a day or two, it's totally worth it, just to be there and be part of the fun.
And the second thing about the gas lamp, you can go out in the evening and you'd be surprised at who you'll see at the table next to you.
Oh, super true. We don't have time left in the show for me to tell those kind of stories. Oh, sorry, I'll tell one really fast. It was Jeff Johns. I remember many, many years ago, speaking of my man Mark Waid again, Mark Waid was leading The Flash. And I'll say, as I've said a million times, Mark runs Waid on the Flash, changed comics, changed the direction from grim and gritty back to what superheroes are supposed to be. And everybody was loving his Flash, and he was leaving. And this kid, Jeff Johns, was taking over the book. And there we were having lunch. I remember these cornbread hush puppies I used to get that were so awesome. And at the table next to us was some DC editor and this kid, Jeff Johns. And I was angry. I was mad. Who does this kid think he is? He can't take over the biggest book in comics. He can't write a book Mark Waid wrote. That kid's like 12. What does he know about writing comics? Well, that guy's now the owner of DC Comics. And I'm still me, so clearly he was on to something, and had a little talent. He did know something about writing comics. He knew a lot about comics, and he still does. You never know.
You never know.
My other story, I almost stole an empty pack of cigarettes that belonged to Frank Miller. We were sitting at a table, and Frank Miller was there, and they were doing their thing, and they got up and left, and he left his empty pack of cigarettes, and I so wanted that empty pack of cigarettes. Talk about collector nerdism. That's just an empty pack of cigarettes. Yeah, but it belonged to Frank Miller. Really? Did he sign it? No, he left the table, but I stole it. I saw him with it.
It has his DNA on it.
I don't know that I want Frank Miller's DNA. I don't know if I want that seeping into mine, but I did want that empty box of cigarettes.
I know. I once saw Mark Evanier at a Chinese restaurant,
Awesome.
and he had a big group of people. And you're like, and I was with a couple of people, and I'm whispering to them, and it's like, I go, this must be like when you with a Hollywood movie starts, oh look, there's Matthew McConaughey. And Mark Evanier is probably like, what the heck's going on? Is there a fire somewhere and they're not telling us? And everyone was looking at him. All the comic nerds were like, Mark Evanier.
It's like, people know who I am. He's the guy that does Garfield. So, like I say, conventions are fun. San Diego is the most fun there is. If you can, okay, it takes a year to get the ticket. So people always ask me, how do I get into San Diego Comic-Con? You don't. No, really. How do I get into San Diego Comic-Con? Okay. First thing you have to do is get on the San Diego Comic-Con website and do all the registration and all that kind of thing. And then you have to visit that website every single day for the rest of your life to be told when the buzzer is going to go off, so that you know when the buzzer is going to go off, so you're ready to hit the button. So start now because the show is next week, which means you have 53 weeks to pull this off. Go to the Comic-Con website, read all the things that you need to read, look at all the hoops that you need to jump through, and then next year jump through those hoops. It's a huge pain in the butt. It's a lot of money. After you do all that, you still have to get the hotel. You have to feed yourself for 5 days. You got to put on some comfortable shoes. We're going to talk about all that tomorrow at the San Diego Comic-Con do's and don'ts. But if you've never been, you have to go at least once. If you love comics, if you love pop culture, if you love all these things, like I say, get out to your local convention, but do your darndest to somehow someday get yourself to San Diego Comic-Con because it's worth it. It's a huge hassle and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. You gotta go once.
Yes.
When I die, I like to think that heaven is a giant room full of comic books and comic creators, and that it's the only room bigger than the one at San Diego Comic Con. So like
hopefully
say,
there's more room. Yeah. Less people, more room.
Well, I imagine there wouldn't be less people, but. Anywho, it's a ton of fun, and we're really looking forward to it. And last but not least, as we wind it up, is the release of the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide. I'm very sorry, Marcus, that you're not here because I know that when I say Overstreet, his eyes light up and his day changes. The Overstreet Price Guide is the Bible that we all use to gauge the ever-changing value of our comics and our comic collection. We could do a whole show on the Overstreet. But it comes out every year. If you know what I'm talking about, then this is a good year to get one because it has a Planet of the Apes cover, and because, again, the market is changing faster than ever. So if you haven't picked one up in a while, grab one next week. They're about $25, and it's totally worth it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then when you're in your shop next week, ask to take a look at an Overstreet. Have them explain it to you. Everybody that's serious about comics should have one, even if you're never going to resell your stuff. It's fun. It's informational. And it's just cool too. It has every kind of tidbit of information that you could possibly imagine, and so much more. And that's next week. Again, it's one of the big events of Comics of the Year.
It's our Bible when it comes out every year.
Sure. Yeah. I'll see them all over Comic-Con next week. Like I say, it's a big deal. It's fun to look up the books you have. It's fun to look up the books you want. There's articles in it, all kinds of things. It's the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide. Again, if you follow the podcast, I'm sure next week Marcus will tell you all about it because he's going to be super, super stoked to have a new Overstreet next week. And that brings us to our full hour.
Do you have any other questions?
It always goes faster than we think it is. Let's see. No. The folks at home, folks in the audience.
Yeah, with
Daniel from Milpitas.
glad to be here. With San Diego becoming, in a sense, more and more of a Goliath in regards to shows, I think you talked about this. Have become more and more grandiose. C2E2, WonderCon, New York Comic Con, here, Silicon Valley Con, things of that nature. How do you feel about these shows, in a sense, taking on the refugees that are denied San Diego?
I'll say two things to that point, and these are 2 points that extend to just about everything in comics, unfortunately. There are 2 aspects of just about anything. One is those who are here for the love of comics and the fun of the experience, and there are those who are profiting from the people that you're talking about. And I think, unfortunately, they go hand in hand in this business, and it's very important to the fan to recognize the difference and understand where they're willing to commit. What do I mean by all this? I'm all for what you're talking about. I'm all for shows getting bigger. I'm all for the expansion of everything. We started this Rockin Milpitas pre-Comic-Con Comic-Con because there weren't enough things like you're talking about. Because I felt, well, people can't go to San Diego. What are they supposed to do? Go to Seattle. Well, people can't go to Seattle, so I'm going to set up something wacky in my parking lot so people have something to go to. So I'm all for that. However, you can't make it expensive. It has to be for kids. It has to be for schlubs like me. It can't be for the collector. It can be for all of us, including the collector, but it can't be just for the guy who has $100 for an autograph. That's, I don't know, my slightly socialist bend. But like I said earlier, everything in comics needs to be accessible. Everything in comics needs to be for the 10-year-old that we all were when we got into this. So like I say, I'm all for it. Again, the toy show, excuse me, our local toy show is super inexpensive. Yeah. Generally speaking, and I know that this isn't always true. There are, obviously people, especially in California, have financial struggle, all that kind of thing. Generally speaking, a parent can take their kid to the toy show. Most parents can afford to, and shoot, the kids get in free half the time, and the tickets are $10. So, if you know the toy show's quarterly, maybe you can't go every time, but like I say, at some point, a parent can take their kid to the toy show and buy them some cheap used toy, and it's fun, it's successful. And conversely, the hardcore collector can go to the toy show and get a super awesome graded amazing 300. And so I think that kind of scenario is awesome. San Diego, I'll admit, as I say, it's expensive. You got to get to the hotel, you got to feed yourself. But honestly, the ticket is not necessarily expensive. It's a real hassle to get, but it's not inaffordable. The ticket price hasn't really changed too much over the years, and so I commend them for that. As one thing, companies, I'll use Disneyland, though it's not a fair example. They raise the price to limit the attendance. The higher you make the price, the less people go. So at a point where you can't control the crowd, you make it too expensive. So then half the crowd leaves. And like I say, it's not an evil tactic. It's just a thing you do to manage crowds. And San Diego could have done that 10 years ago. You could pay $200 a day and people would do it. But they don't do that. They just make it impossible to get into the raffle. So that's my long version. Like I say, I'm all for big, small shows getting bigger. I'm all for the proliferation of the industry, but it has to be done in a way that kids can participate.
I think we got a good question right here from Kendra. Recommendations for early teen girl for her leap into comics.
Good to hear from you, Kendra. I usually like to be sexist and turn that over to the woman that works here.
Miss Marvel and Unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
That's two
that's
great
what I was gonna
answers.
say,
Miss Marvel and Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. First of all, my answer to that question is always team books. Books like Titans or Avengers or Justice League, something like that. Because X-Men is so great for this, because you're exposed to different characters. Here is a book with 8 different characters, and you can choose, hey, I like Robin, hey, I like Starfire, as opposed to, you're a girl, read Wonder Woman, be a man, read Captain America. And so, like I say, I like to start with teen books. Secondarily, what you said, or equally, I should say, what you said is really cool. There's tons and tons of accessible titles out there. Right now, it's called Marvel Rising. I think is the one with Miss Marvel and Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. They each have their own titles. Grab the volume ones to those books. I think Unbeatable Squirrel Girl is one of the smartest comics to come out in a long time. And so that's one I'd highly recommend.
Spider-Gwen's
Spider-Gwen
That's
is another one.
Yeah.
And yeah, Archie, thank you. The whole line of Archie, the Betty and Veronica book was really great. And again, I don't necessarily mean to just name a bunch of titles with girls in it, but there is that relatability factor and all like that. And Miss Marvel, I think, is the best place to start.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this one, but I'm kind of leaning towards the new Green Arrow because it's going to be written by the Benson sisters.
Ah, there you go.
And they have this really unique voice. They've been writing for television for years, and they're really good. They do for the 100, I believe, is the show they do. And so they've done a few issues. They were doing Birds of Prey, which too bad. That's I think didn't that end?
Yeah, they ended Batgirl.
Yeah, so but that was a great title. But like I said, so I want to see what they're going to do with Green Arrow because they're going to write a male character, but they're not like they're going to be like turned feminine or anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. So I could see anybody getting into Green Arrow right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's another thing with the new fans, with young fans, with anybody. One thing like the team books, I always like to recommend to folks: find the creator you like, and then buy whatever they do. That's a great way to collect comics. When I got into this 100 years ago, you found the title that you liked, and you read that book forever. Whoever wrote it and drew it, I kept reading Captain America, whether I liked it or not. And honestly, I still do that, and a lot of people like me still do. But
right next to you.
But these days, come into your shop, walk around, and find that artist that you like, and find that writer that you like, and then go back and pick up other books that they've done, or follow the book they're doing. Look for other things that they do. Following a creator is kind of the best way to read comics because it just stands to reason that if you liked what they did on this book, you'll like what they did on the other book. That's why I'm talking about Bendis Superman, is because his Daredevil was so awesome that whatever he did after Daredevil, I at least read the first 6 issues because I wanted a taste of that magic. Thanks for the question, Kendra. Another question from the audience.
I was just wondering, how do you feel that now I think Hollywood is in this really scramble to produce now every single Marvel character that has ever existed, and
not even close.
Yeah,
that's okay. Go on.
Yeah.
And DC is, in a sense, tripping over themselves to try to catch up. And now, more and more, you see titles and intellectual properties that you thought would never make it to the silver screen, to television, in a sense, being picked. Like, for instance, I remember when I first began reading Preacher, and then I heard like, oh, they're gonna make a show, and my first thought was like, that show is gonna get so many complaints. Like, how they get it past censors and all that stuff. And now it's in its 3rd season, and I learned recently that Bloodshot, a title that's been around for now decades and decades, is in talks to being produced into a film. Do you think it does a service or disservice to these more, I guess we'll call them indie titles?
I mean, I look at it, it's like, it depends on how well they do it. If they take a little, like in the 70s when I was a kid and they were producing comic book movies for TV and stuff like that, they were schlock. They were horrible, I mean, the best one was the Hulk, but you things like
we saw that Thor Daredevil episode.
Yeah, and Daredevil all in black. Thor looked more like a Viking. It was horrible, but that's all we had. So now when they make these new ones and they do a very good job, and I was like with you with Preacher, I was like, how are they going to do this? How is this? And we know there's character. We know the one character that was like, really, they're going to do that character, and they did it. And I'm like, wow.
And they went there.
Yeah, that's the perfect way of putting it. So I'm happy that they're doing it. I was never one of those people that was like, the gatekeeper, like, because out of the 3 of us, I'm probably the one that reads the most indie books. And I was never the one where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the indie guy. You don't read that. You're a Marvel guy. Leave my indies alone. Where I love Marvel, it's my first love, but then indies my second. So I'm happy that they're doing it. I want to see that. I mean, they're also talking about doing Why the Last Man. Now that's the one I can't wait for. I was on that from issue 1 to the very end, and I can't wait for that one. I want to see that world. I want to see a world with this one guy and all these women, and it's not the
And this pet
sexist
monkey.
Yeah, and his monkey, yeah, and it's not a sexist like, ooh, he's gonna be like, getting, everywhere he goes, he's in demand. No, it's
Why
not
the
that
Last
world.
Man shows you do not want to be the
Right.
only man on planet Earth.
No.
I would agree with that. Like I said earlier, if it makes comics more accessible, certainly with the indie things, I think that's really important. But again, yeah, it has to be quality, and to some extent, and not 100%, in my opinion, it needs to be somewhat faithful to the source material, not verbatim, but it has to convey the initial point. Where I think Netflix totally gets it is that Daredevil is Daredevil. That the seasons of Daredevil. If you're a Daredevil fan, it's the Frank Miller, Bendis, Brubaker. It's whatever era of Daredevil you love. Shoot, it's the early stuff. It's the very best of Daredevil, and it's the hints of the story, but people like me that have read every book don't necessarily know how it's going to end. So like we've been talking about with some of the number ones, it's everything I know and am familiar with, but it's also new stories with new characters. And I know that's impossible. It's like I want everything. But when you can make those things mesh, again, like Netflix has done so well,
Punisher.
with Punisher, with Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones, I think, is the one of the best conversions from comics to TV that I've seen. And what that does, the reason I explain it this way, because I, as the fan and I, as the retailer, want to see two things. I want somebody to see the show and come buy the book, or at least want to buy the book. Because again, as a comic fan, I want more people reading comics. As a retailer, I want more people buying comics. So I want you to see the show and be interested enough in the source material to come see what it's all about. But then I need the source material to be familiar to you, like the show needs to be for the fan. You know what I mean? So when I never remember how the titles were, but I think it's Kingsman. The book was called Wanted, right?
Yeah. No, that was Wanted was the. No, wait.
I'll use a different example.
Yeah.
The Halle Berry Catwoman movie.
Oh, okay.
That's not Catwoman.
No.
That's an action film, and I'm not going to talk about the quality of the film. That's not the point. The point is they called it Catwoman, and she's running around as a woman in a cat suit. But that's not Catwoman. It's not Gotham City. There's nothing about that movie that has anything to do with the character that they based the movie on, and that kind of thing drives me nuts.
Yeah,
why did you call it Catwoman?
Yeah, Wanted was the assassins. The one. Remember where in the movie they did the bending the bullets, with Angela Jolie.
Right.
And in the comic it was Halle Berry when character did grown, and it was Eminem, and I guess I forget who they used for the male character, but it had nothing to do with that.
And so,
just a name, that's all.
And that's the thing. A lot of times they buy the title, and I would like to think Bloodshot's not going to be this, because I know they want to do with other Valiant things. But you buy the character and you have it look like that, and then you make some John Woo movie, and not like I'm even dissing on that. I'm just saying that you took this and then you did whatever the heck you wanted with it, and that doesn't serve either crowd. But again, when you do it, especially with I would love it. Nothing would make me happier than if Bloodshot became a big deal and people were like, "What's Bloodshot? Oh, it's this. Hey, this is awesome. What else? Well, comes from Rye. Well, what's Rye? Well, Rye's this. Well, hey, that's awesome. Well, if you like that, you should read Exo Manowar. That would of course make me very, very happy.
I think a really good example is The Walking Dead. I know some people didn't like the TV show; they thought it was too slow, but it didn't follow the comic exactly, but the world was the same. A Walking Dead fan could watch that show and go, "Oh, yeah, I recognize this world." Oh, wait a minute, that guy's dead in the comic. Oh no, he's alive here. But what happened to her? Oh, she's gone. She took off. And you're like, wait a minute. So I can watch this and not second guess everything.
Mhm. Again, it's
Yeah.
familiar, but you don't know what's going to happen,
Mhm.
and that's fun for both crowds. Question.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about Comic Con. Like, you say you still go for you go for the old comics. And one thing I've been hearing lately, like a lot in the past few Comic Cons, is like it's not about the comics anymore. So I was wondering how you feel about that. How accurate that statement is.
That's funny. I'll say two things to that, and I always take both sides of everything. I like to be wishy-washy that way. I like to be fully explanatory that way. I'll say.
I did not inhale.
It is. I said this at the subscriber party last night. Everything, all the criticism that Comic-Con gets is totally fair and valid, and everything that they say is true. However, it is still the biggest room full of comic books there is. Seattle's catching up on it. I love me some Seattle Comic-Con. I buy a lot of books up there. But San Diego still has the biggest floor of any place. There are still tons and tons of great books at great prices. A little like the toy show. If you want to buy books cheap, you can buy books cheap. If you want to buy really expensive graded books, you can still do that. I used to spend all 5 days buying comics, and I don't do that anymore. I used to not be able to get to all of the booths, and that's not true anymore. So like I say, yes, there's a whole lot less comics. The whole nature of Comic-Con has changed. It's much more Hollywood. It's much more video game. It's much more pop culture than comics. All these things, like I say, all the criticisms that people have are true, and all the things that they say are fair. But other than vintage toys, I myself used to buy a lot of Migos down there. And other than the vintage toys and vintage things that aren't comics, most things of San Diego or the reasons I go are still there. I still spend more money than I have on old comics. I go there with my budget, and I exceed my budget every year, and still leave books on the table. You know what I mean? And I can spend, again, not 5 days, but 2 or 3 days looking at books, looking at stuff. So again, it's very true. But as I think about, there's still more comics than at WonderCon, still more comics than we'll be at New York. I'm anxious. I'm going to New York Comic Con for the first time this year. So I'm curious how that compares. But like I say, all those things are true. But I still have a heck of a time and still have no problem buying all the comics I want to buy.
Yeah. If you're there for comics, it's there. If you're there for Hollywood, it's there. So it's what you want.
And I'll put that back like I like to do sometimes. I'll put a little of that back on the fan. The comic is, they sell you what you want. And so when we say, and I always put myself in this camp so as to not accuse other people. I can cry all I want, but when I go to the comic book section, I'm the only one there. But when you go to the video game section, it's packed. You can't walk on that side of the floor. So, guys like me that cry about whatever. Sorry, dude, but see that massive army of people over there and notice how it's you in the air conditioner? You know what I mean? And so, like I say, I don't mean to be too harsh on people, but I myself have to, one thing, especially as a retailer, I've seen this. The window. There's a 10-year window that moves along. And when I got into this, I was in the window and I didn't know it. The window was in that 60s, 70s thing, which was what I loved, and everything everywhere was 60s, 70s stuff. And I was like, yeah. Well, one day I turned around and the window had moved along like a Price is Right game, you know what I mean? And things going, and now it's in the 1985, heading to the 90s. And I'm like, Turtles and Transformers. No,
come back.
How come, where'd all my Mego dolls go? And what happened to all my Planet of the Apes? And people were like, what's Planet of the Apes? And I'm, what? And so I had to accept, look, dude, the world moves on. And again, as the retailer, I totally saw that, because here came the 80s kids and they were buying up all my G.I. Joe and Transformers, and that's great. And then I saw it happen to them. Then the world moved, and here came all the Power Rangers kids. And all the Turtles guys were like, Power Rangers? What happened to my Turtles? What Turtles were cool? Turtles. That's life, guys. And I've told people, God bless you folks who have worked for me. I've said it will happen to you. They make fun of me, oh, you're old. I was only 35 when they called me old. Now I'm 50, and now it's happening to them.
Yeah.
Whatever it was that they were into that day. Oh, my MySpace page. The world goes on, and we all have to accept that. And so, again, I put a lot of things back on the fan base, and whenever we're crying about something, it's our fault, and we're just not acknowledging that. And like I say, one day, people just weren't buying comics at Comic-Con, and so other people started taking that booth space, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, Artist Alley is another example. I mean, Artist Alley ever had the biggest Artist Alley ever, and every year it shrank and shrank because more people were wanting Hollywood video games, stuff like that, and these artists were like, well, why are we giving it to these guys for nothing? No one's ever down Artist Alley. I mean, you walk down Artist Alley, it's everybody's got their their blinders on. Don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. If you look at his book, you've got to buy it or you got to at least talk to him. So I mean, Artist Alley can be a graveyard sometimes.
Yeah, and so like I say, and another point to that is cosplay. It cannot be understated how cosplay has changed this whole industry. When I started going to Comic-Con, it was like, look, there's somebody dressed up like somebody, and now I'm the person that's not dressed up like somebody. And so again, just the whole dynamic of things shift, and things become about something else. And those of us that are doing the old thing are like, well, but this all started because of comics. It's like, well, that's nice. Thanks for starting this. And like I say, we don't have to like it, but on a lot of levels, it's just accepted.
We have another question for you, Mark.
Yes. Is it true that John Scott is your idol? John Scott has been my idol since I was in junior high. He and I were going to work on a newspaper strip a long time ago, and that never really came to fruition. But yes, he's super awesome. What's up, John? And where do I get Brady? What's up, Brady? Where do you, Chris, tell him where you got your shirt.
This one or this?
I'm pretty sure he means mine. You can get that right here in our store, or you can. We will be launching a new store site very soon. I imagine you will be able to find our shirts like these in red and in black on our Shopify site. As soon as it's launched, TBD. More info as we roll that out. Thanks for the question. They are great shirts. The art was done by our friend Josh Frankel. I should mention Josh because he's awesome. Anyone? One more from the audience.
Like yourself, I go for more classic books. I'm that guy that sticks to that one little section in the convention most of the time, trying to find rare X-Men books because, well, I'm a fiend at this point. Do you have any recommendations for those people who, in a sense, mostly stick to finding the rare books? Because, like yourself has said, you have experience being that person that has always looked for rare books. Is there something that you would recommend, like a technique or just a mentality to have when going to find those rare books?
Yes, about rare books. What is our technique for finding them? And one of the things I would say is Overstreet. Know your Overstreet. Know what you should be paying for. Because unfortunately, there are people that will stick it to you. And they'll say
it's a for-profit business.
Yeah. So know what you want.
That's what I was going to start.
Yes. Get a little list together. What your wants. When I first started, I had on paper. I had everything like what I want. This is what I want to walk away with. This is what I'll pick up. Like if I had the extra time or money or whatever, and then what kind of like if I see it and it's a good price, I might pick it up. But always know your prices. Know what you're what you're willing to spend for.
Yeah. Because
if it's a $10,000 book, yeah, it'd be nice to get it, but not very many of us can afford that. So, but know what you're going to be looking for, and then just go through it. Your eye is your best thing for you. You know what quality of a book it is. Like like, oh my God, the cover's falling off this. And you want how much? This is not near mint, you know. You may not be able to perfect grade it, but you know what's what and what you're willing to accept. You know, we've talked about this many times where, for me, one of the things I cannot stand is a book that has lost its Marvel value stamp, where the little kid has cut
Sure.
that out, you know, and I don't care what the price is, I won't get it, you know. Also, comics that have been, you know, like drawn on, like it says, instead of saying Silver
Billy,
Surfer,
room 9.
yeah, exactly. You know, I don't want that. I mean, no matter how cheap it is, unless he's almost giving it away, I'm not going to take it.
Those are all that's the top 3 points. First thing you got to know is what you want. You go to a convention and there's a sea of boxes of comics, and it's beyond easy to get taken off course. And so have a list of what you want, what you have, know what you have, know what you want, and have a prioritization, because you have to have a plan. That is number one. If you're not, on a somewhat side note, if you're any kind of comic fan, or if you're going to be a hardcore comic fan, comic collector, have a plan. Have a plan for what you want. Have a plan for how you're going to buy it. Like you say, know what your budget is and where you're going to put it. How you're going to store this stuff, because comics takes up space. That's the third part we don't think about. But to answer your question, you got to know what you want. You got to know what your budget is, and yes, you got to, as I mentioned before, have an overstreet. Know what you are going to pay before you go into it, and you got to be flexible. The overstreet is a guide, not a rule book, and there's leeway in different things, but you've got to know what you're willing to pay, and you have to know what you're willing to pay for. My example, for the store, I buy nice ones, of course, but for myself, I buy reader copies. I buy the cheap, beat-up ones because they all read the same to me, and I just want to fill the run. So I know a reasonable price range. I know I'm not going to find that book for $5, but I know that I shouldn't pay more for $25, more than 25 for this book in this grade. Having said all of these things, you need all the luck in the world. The fact of the matter is that you're going to go to that bin and your list is going to say number 78, and every single booth in this place is going to have number 77 and number 79. And that's just how it's going to be. And you're going to go to the next show and it's going to be the same thing. And you're going to the next show and the same thing. You're like, what the heck? Why can't I find number 78? And then when you finally buy 78, the next show you go to, everybody's going to have 78. Nobody's going to have 79. And so, like I said, there's also, and again, finding the one, they might have the one that you need, but it's going to be, way too nice a high grade, or it's going to be too low a grade, or what have you. And you have to know, that's again where the flexibility comes in. Am I going to pay a little more for this, even though it's nicer than I need, because I'm not going to see it again, or whatever have you? Do I have to have this book right now, or can I wait to find it in a lower grade?
There's one other thing I want to add, and this Anthony, who works here at the shop, he has a container for his comics. For when he buys things, it's a hard container. That's one thing we never think about, is when you buy a nice graded comic, and you spend a lot of money, now you've got to go through the rest of the day with it in your backpack or in your bag, right, and you're worried about that thing. So that's something to think about. It's some kind of container, or I bought it and I'm going to go run to my car or go back to the hotel, whatever, to unload it, because it really is something that first time I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, now I got to walk around with this all day long.
That's true. And again, part of it's being prepared.
And the other thing that you've mentioned many times is when you're in that hunt, and if you see that comic in the very first booth, two booths over for cheaper, or I may not find it. And if I come back, it may be gone. And we've both been burned both ways. Yep. You're like, oh, look at there, it's $20 cheaper here. And then saying like, oh, I can't find it anywhere. All right, gotta get back to that booth. Where was it? Okay, here it is. You sold it.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's the way it usually goes.
Yeah. So
Yep, I'm getting the big X. It's 7:30. We are running out of time, so I'll start in with the wrap up. Thank you all so much, viewers at home. Those of you who send in questions. Thanks for our studio audience for showing up and participating. Again, this was part of our Black Hat Comics Rockin' Milpitas pre-Comic-Con Comic-Con. Tomorrow is gaming day, and then we're going to have a panel on the do's and don'ts for San Diego Comic-Con. So if you're headed to the show, as we've been talking about, then look out for those tips. And as we said, then Saturday's movie night, Sunday is the squat meet. You can check out the website for all the details on all that fun stuff. You can find us here. Well, not here. We're not live every week. This is something special. But you can find our podcast on SoundCloud.com every Monday. You can find our weekly video and the weekly newsletter every week on our Facebook page and on the YouTube channel. You can find us every day at black-cat-comics.com, where you can, again, check out all the information on events. You can sign up for our subscription service, check out all the info on the store. And, of course, you can find us every day here at the good old brick and mortar at 176 South Main Street in Rockin' Milpitas, California.
Yeah.
So from Black Cat Comics, I'm Mark.
And Chris.
We missed you, Marcus.
Yes.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.